Hey, hello, DefCamp. Good afternoon. Being first day, I hope you are as excited as myself to be here and get a sense of all these nice topics today. I'll give you some cool insights into how human resource recruitment process can go wrong, pretty wrong. Actually, I need this. So my name is Mihai Oprea. I'm Senior Manager for Cybersecurity Operations at Secureworks. And today I'm going to talk about secure counter-threat unit research based on incident response cases we had during this year. We're going to analyze things from two perspectives. One is about companies looking to hire talent, and the other from professionals that are interested in taking new job opportunities. Both are actually equally interesting for cyber espionage groups affiliated to Democratic Public Republic of Korea or North Korea. There is a review from US DOJ during this year where, according to the court of law, there are more than 300 companies that were affected in US by this North Korean threat actor, and around $6.8 million money that ended up being actually transferred to North Korea. So how this operates, they use multiple laptop farms in US. The threat actors' focus is not just financial, but also espionage. And of course, as I mentioned, the DOJ had some cases that surfaced this issue. Those laptop farms were seized, and domains associated with the phishing campaigns and the lures used by the attackers were seized during these years. So, intelligence shows that North Korean are actually, IT workers are often located in Chinese towns close to the border with North Korea. It is likely that many IT workers are centrally located in the same places, like call centers, and workers are responsible for jobs at multiple companies at once, so they operate from a single location. Back in the US, the facilitators run a laptop farm from IPs which appears to be credible and suitable for US employment. Laptop farms have been discovered, and of course in other countries, not just US, but mostly they were US based. So the facilitator in charge is receiving the corporate laptop. It's allowing the North Korean IT worker to remotely connect it to that one. It's facilitating the entire access. So the companies are actually not aware of the fact that their laptops ended up in such places, IT farm assets. Those laptops, of course, have access to the backend corporate systems as a normal employee, which unfortunately give access to unauthorized people to internal systems. Further, part of an incident response case we had during this year, it was discovered that DPRK IT workers was hired as a contractor. The contractor performed their duties as expected, sufficiently, that's it, but it was only discovered retroactively following the expiration of the contract worker. And why? Because a suspicious communication sourced from a laptop machine was later analyzed, and it was identified to be in reality sourced from a laptop farm. At that point, the contractor was questioned. Even though the employment contractor ended, the contractor was questioned and the false persona surfaced. It became clear that the employee did not want to turn on their video, was another technique they used, or they didn't accept any discussion about meeting in person for that specific job, of course. It was quite clear that it is a fraudulent person who was actually infiltrating into that specific company organization. So some characteristics, as I mentioned, resumes the candidates use are similar, clones of them in many times. Multiple candidates use the same phone number, actually, and of course they use stolen identities to create fake personas and actually rely on the data from those stolen persons to use their email address, use their home address, phone numbers sometimes. Nevertheless, in cases where the fraudulent worker was actually being hired as an employee, there are also signs of suspicious behavior as a higher company can look for. So these include last-minute changes of the shipping address for the laptops that it was already delivered. So the laptop is in transit, they request changing of the shipping address, so it's pretty difficult to actually track and get ahead of cases like this. Or a last-minute change of payment informations, pretty common. This is also very sensitive with the payment information because they use a service payment, external service payments, and unfortunately, wiring money to those kind of services, which end up being further transferred to North Korea, leads to violating international sanction. So the implication of this is not just, okay, somebody hacked my system or got access into my environment. You end up in a situation where you breach some international law. So it was observed also the consultants are often flagged for poor performance, around 6-8 weeks, sometimes more. In cases where that specific person ends up staying for a long year in the company, they use that job history as part of their further reference in the CV, so to trick further other companies. And of course, this scheme is being tracked around 2019 back, where the North Korean candidates started to do this, but they get over time less careful and meticulous, you know. So they, as I mentioned, using similar phone numbers, descriptions in their CV, same companies they work for, same college they went to. So we'll see further case a bit later. The fraudulent applicants target specifically full stack jobs. Why? Because this gives us the ability to take front-end, but also back-end position, which it's more options to apply for jobs in a specific organizations. So the applicants typically portray around 10 years of experience, prior experience, and 3-4 companies listed in their work history. The work history mostly, it's fake companies that are invented, created on the public websites like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and other platforms, so they can easily trick as part of the information they have in their resume and their public LinkedIn profiles. So the applicants who have spoken with the recruiters also, they denote novice to intermediate English talking skills, which is not quite expected for somebody who had studies done in US or he's actually living in US for a longer period of time. So, of course, once they get hired, they display lack of continuity in productivity and good work. So they end up being flagged, as I've mentioned, around in between 2-3 months as poor performance. So let's actually look at a specific case we had. And based on the information there, we did a bit of research. So even though you perform a brief online research, it's pretty apparent that the smaller details surrounding the candidate do not align. Joseph Gardner is a fake persona. It is created by the attacker. This is a very common English name, but in this particular case, as I mentioned, it's a persona created by attacker. It's a false one. So this is a screenshot from the LinkedIn page for that user. Existed. LinkedIn flagged it as fake account and they put it down. But what we can see for this specific details. So in the CV, Joseph Gardner, he mentioned that it's working for Blackish Tech. Into the LinkedIn profile, the name of the company, it's actually Black Tech, so which is slightly different. Further, he's saying that he's living in Cypress, Texas, and what else? Senior software developer. And attended McMurray College. Interesting stuff, because McMurray College is actually a private college somewhere in Illinois. It stopped functioning around 2020, and in 2015 they had around 500 attendees, which it's a very low likelihood for somebody to be exactly in that very small number of people which attended that specific college. And of course, this could be very easily mapped with the age of the person. But let's look a bit further. Checking the Glassdoor profile for that specific company, Blackish Tech, we observe other components. There are some details that stand out. It is a relatively small company in a small city in Pennsylvania. The entity contains one company review. The review has been left by a React, a native developer, so a similar job, exactly a similar job as the persona, which coincidentally falls under the position as I've mentioned. So when looking at the pros and cons listed in the review for the company itself, here is remote role, excellent benefits, great culture, some random words with capitals, which denotes, again, not native English speaker. And the domain itself for the company, for the Blackish Tech, was, of course, part of the seized domain by the DOJ. So, inappropriate English language use, grammarly speaking, differences between the name of the high school, as mentioned, and the company name, sorry, Blackish Tech and Black Tech. Looking a bit further, today the domain is seized, but previously, if you have access to the domain, it was actually a clone for the company, created just to specify different services and provide information about what that specific company is doing. And it's pretty difficult to validate all the companies in a fully remote work environment as of today. But let's look further to another candidate, a name which is pretty common for us, George Radu. Guess what? Yes, they scatter identities all over the world depending on what they are actually targeting. So along the lines to make the candidates and fake companies appear legitimate, the actors had another persona in George Radu here. It's of course, it's a fake persona. So common things between this one and the previous. Macquarie College, interesting. The same company, Black Tech, Blackish Tech, which now it's actually the correct name. Instead of the previous one, it was Black Tech versus Blackish Tech. He lives in Los Angeles, California. It's Blackish Tech, when you search it as a company name on internet, it's a company with less than 50 employees, according to the Glassdoor. It was previously. And it's located in a very small town in Pennsylvania, in US. So the George Radu persona claims to live in Los Angeles, working remotely for a small town Pennsylvania company, and the person went to the same small school, Macquarie College in Indiana. So very scattered places in US. What is not implausible, but it's also very likely to be a real persona. So by doing some research into the person's CVs, into their online profiles, and trying to correlate the place where they live, the place where they had studies, the place where they previously worked, those could be a very good ice-breaking topics as part of the interview to try to poke around and see if actually it's a real person. The recruiters are actually started to use this kind of techniques. Good, so moving a bit further, another fake company profile created just to support this entire vast network of threat actors, let's put it this way. It's a helix. A helix, it's not a pretty common, but there are many companies that have helix in their name in the US. So if you look closer, this page seems to be rather copied by an AI tech or created automatically with some AI technology, and some things, as I've mentioned, not appropriate English, non-native English phrases. Attackers use sometimes quotes, and as you can see, there is Prudent Technology Solutions. We offer Prudent Technology Solutions. What's that? Nothing. It's a bit of nonsense. So this kind of small errors always tend to slip through the cracks and could be pretty easily spotted if we do proper scattering of the information about those candidates, about the persons we are using. So as I've mentioned, we know recruiters started to do this. We have customers of ours that confirm this is a known technique for the agencies which are doing this kind of stuff. Of course, the helix-us.com, it's the fake website, was seized also. Now if you go on the website, it's down for the exact same threat. Fine, but what we can do, how we can verify? There are various techniques, of course, but it's not about just the HR person, but it's also about the security teams which are doing due diligences and background checks for those specific potential employees, candidates, or further if they extend an offer. So, of course, steps to verify candidates in the interview prior is hiring center, focusing on the details into their resumes, online profiles. Candidates often sound, whenever you speak with them, they like in a call center, and no valid reason why. Many of them refuse to open the camera without providing supporting reasons. So also the education on resume is listed in university, specifically for this threat actor, universities in China, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, where they've done these studies. But then if you look in the CV, you observe the candidate employment history is mostly in US or Canada. So it's a bit of discrepancy that individually is not telling anything, but if you start to put things together, there might be actually stuff you want to double check and validate. Of course, it could reveal holes in the candidate's claims. As I mentioned earlier, the easiest way as part of a discussion, AI, or as a manager or as a hiring person in your company is just to, use icebreaker quotes and throw simple questions like, oh, what was the mascot of the college you attend? Or what was the preferred restaurant in the hometown? People which are not living in US, they have no clue about that. So at that point, they freak out. So it's pretty easy, with a small conversation to put people on run with this. Of course, there are some other very meticulous things you can look for. So you can verify the candidates, the area code of the company phone number, listed on the company website. It matches the supported location of the company office. As I've mentioned, they are stalling identities and they use those identities data, username, phone numbers, addresses, or home addresses specifically. In many cases, the company addresses mentioned listed are fake company pages actually mapped to residential properties rather than office buildings. So that is another criteria you can keep an eye on. And of course, clumsy written, disjointed quotes, promotional phrases in company description, and on company website could indicate a fake company profile, not just a fake persona. So individually, they are not saying anything. When they put together, then they start to build a potential story there. Post-hire, if somehow you suspect that it's not okay with the potential candidates, they refuse turning on the videos without any explanations. They always have a strong background noise, like they're in a call center, and they cannot justify that. They avoid any in-meeting person. You might have regional offices, you might ask them to actually go over there. They are completely denying those kind of stuff. Language preferences for the keyboards can be in Korean, despite this, claiming to be non-Korean, which is a specific keyboard layout. And of course, request prepayments. I need a prepayment to get a desk. I need to buy a laptop locally, but the laptop you're going to ship me is not appropriate, whatever. So they can invent any type of topics to ask prepayment, or even personal, let's say, situation. So what can companies do around this? It's definitely conduct better background checks. And if you're not able to perform it internally, it's always good to use companies which are performing that, but try to focus on trusted and known authorities which are providing those information. Restrict unauthorized VPNs on your company laptops. Can also tamp down the remote access methods for entities outside of the designated work location. Many of the fraudulent applicants have used stolen identities for various heritages and use the addresses tied to those entities as initial mailing address and remote work address. But as I previously mentioned, they request a change of the delivery address during the shipping time. Verify banking information to avoid routing paychecks to money services. That's, as I mentioned earlier, it's another very concerning situation. And why not use geolocation capabilities on the laptops to ensure that the reported location for that asset is tied or close to the work location of that specific employee? Sure. Maybe you'd be tempted to think these are challenges just for companies looking to recruit talent. But guess what? The same threat actors, North Korean IT threat actors, are interested also in persons who are looking for jobs. Not saying that you are interested to hire, but always new opportunities could arise. So that's not safe either, apparently. So one other approach we observed related to the same threat actor is named contagious interview campaign. So they use a technique, phishing techniques, very common phishing techniques, to get in contact with person through various platforms, LinkedIn mostly, but also freelance job search engines such as sometimes Upwork, others, Fiverr. They use two methods. First of all, one of them is to ask for but ask for job interview task assessment during the interview process, or ask you to join the interview session through a specifically crafted conference app, not very common ones. So, as I mentioned, the first method, one of the attack methods I mentioned, it's from 2023 to mid-2024, involved the threat actor reaching out to prospective job candidates with a fake job. In some instances, they have asked the candidate to approve or showcase their coding skills by downloading a job interview task hosted on GitLab repo, where the attacker hosted also malicious code. When the candidate downloads and executes the code from the GitLab repo, they unknowingly launch North Korean malware on their machine. Some of the software themes the threat actor have used include not just interview tasks, but also media players, cryptocurrency trading tools, video game programs. So the program is hosted on GitHub. It's a compromised NPM package with malicious JavaScript, and it is tracked in public repository as beavertail malware. Once that payload gets installed, further can spawn other and second stages, which most often was observed to be used in invisible threat. So the invisible threat is a malware used mostly to collect information, store credentials, and I'm going to touch base on this a bit more into the next slides. So the attack method observed into mid-year is a different attack method observed during this mid-2024 is by using conference apps for the interviews. So they ask the candidates to use a specific application. They provide the link to, when you receive an invite for an interview, you get the link to that specific session. To connect many times, you end up downloading malicious software. The malicious software contains the beavertail malware. You open the session, you connect, and there are, of course, ways to spot this kind of issues. This is how we spotted as part of the incident response cases, where in this case, the attacker was used mirror talk, but fortunately it's not very well visible. The icon of the app, it was a jammy. So it was pretty visible that they crafted a specific app build, but they were not paying enough attention to the metadata specifically for that build. They use also free call, FCC call. So this is a newest version. Of course, as I mentioned, starting with 2023, they diversified their attempts, the way they engage in this kind of attacks. So specifically on the mirror talk, there is also, this is the page where the candidate was redirected to download that specific app. It's a fake page. It's not the official one. So the candidate got this page, download the software. But guess what? If you pay attention on a bit of this page, there is a statement there. Start your next video call with a single click. No download, plugin, or login is required. Which means this is the app, the MirrorTalk app, is a web-based. You don't need to download anything. Guess what? The job recruiter just asks you to download an app and use it for the conference. Okay? That's not pretty common. Of course, things changed over time. So they updated the campaign in order to maintain, to be sure that gets successful over time as the tactics they use get pretty often discovered quick, I don't know, a couple of weeks, months, some of them. But there are common characteristics and also differences. Between the common characteristics, they seem to use the same network infrastructure, pretty similar type of tools. They build the new files, the executable files, or depending on whatever platform you are using, Mac, Linux, Windows. So those are similarities into that part. And of course, they maintain the similar target scope, which are software developers and specific in second part of this year, software developers working into the cryptocurrency industry. Differences, initial attack vectors, of course, those changed. They changed the themes. They also changed the coding languages used for the apps, the builds they provide as part of their initial access vector. If the beaver tail was JavaScript using NPM packages, later they moved to Qt framework, where they rewritten their builds containing the malware and the specific app. This allows them to maintain their stealthiness activity. Of course, as I mentioned, distributed via fake jobs interviews, Trojanized games, infected video conference software. Beavertail, this is the main loader, the main component which is being delivered. Latest variants I mentioned, written in Qt framework, allows them to have better portability over different platforms, and of course changed the techniques they use. There is a small screen from the code of the app. This is being used and allows them to actually change the location where they then download those specific malformed packages. Further, as I mentioned, invisible ferret is actually a Python script. There is base64 encoded, XOR also used to make this being a bit difficult to observe. So invisible ferret objective is to steal information, to scrap browser data and support data theft overall across all the platform, which is, as I mentioned, it's supportable over all the platforms pretty easy. So what we know about invisible ferret is it's having three components. There is an initializer. As I mentioned, decodes an IP, retrieves the second component. It could further be used to download additional content. Browser information, scrapping information as much as possible, including wallets, cryptocurrency, targeting specifically this part. Could work very well on Chrome, Brave, Opera, a lot of other browsers, so the portability is high. It's easy for them to use the same network to target extremely different end users. And of course, latest variant can scrap a lot of other, Rabi, Agentix, and Exodus, which are systems. And the third one is remote control and exfil. The remote control gives them actually access to your, access to your system. It's fingerprinting your machine, execute remote commands, so anything else could happen. You can end up actually getting ransomware further because it will allow further stages of the malware executions. Exfiltrate data, of course, FTP, HTTP, and these were the most common ones observed. As I mentioned, the NPM package manager, it's a package manager for JavaScript. It's one of the preferred methods they used initially when they started around 2019, and it was very easy for them to use this because in NPM you can hide very easy dependencies. You can put whatever names you want to them, names which are pretty alike with very, very well-known dependencies or packages. An example, I remember they use, one of the packages they use, it was named execution time async, which is masquerade as its legitimate counterpart, named execution time, which is an NPM package. This authorized one have 27,000 downloads on a week. So it's pretty intense used one. But as I mentioned, over time, they changed the techniques. They prefer more cross-platform coding languages. They use the Qt framework. They build specific, using the framework, they build the specific packages for each individual platform, but the components are actually the same over there. Allows them to reuse, allows them to quickly change the lures and the TAM they use, the softwares behind, switch quickly from a conference call to a game or to a fake app, whatever type, without too much effort. So this is the common infrastructure part which we observed over time they're actually using. Warning signs for you as person who attend a job interview with somebody you don't know, from a company you maybe never known, and you're not completely sure about what's there, is look for, if you get a task like analyze this thing in GitLab or do this code test sample in GitLab, check the GitLab accounts if it is a newly created one, number of repos, updates, commits, when those were lastly created. Of course, if you get a job which is too good to be true, nothing is free in life. Nothing is too good to be true, or too many things are actually too good to be true. Suggestion to use a conference call app, which is not pretty common. If you are uncertain, better ask them to stay on something more common, because in one of the cases we analyzed, we observed that the threat actor asked the candidate to move over Telegram. Over Telegram, it's pretty easy to send content, to send malware, to send files, all the stuff without being actually detected in time, versus on LinkedIn or other well-known conference apps. So be careful. If something looks suspicious, ask for a change. Okay? North Korean, because they are pretty interested in the financial gain, but also on the espionage, is not just, they will continue to do this. They will continue to target software developers, because a software developer is not always using a company-owned machine. They use their personal, especially the freelance one, use their personal assets, which companies have no control over. So those are actually pretty easy to target. Of course, they will continue to change the teams and increase the obfuscations as part of their code structure they use. As I mentioned, moving from NPM further to Qt framework, rewriting those components. Nevertheless, personal laptops, as I've mentioned, have unrestricted access to corporate accounts, which I know there are companies which prefer to use bring your own device. There are advantages, disadvantages, and especially when you are in a fully remote world, that became even more complex to track, analyze, or be on top of a threat. Mitigations could be many, but whenever you have external employees, contractors, always ensure you provide them the minimum necessary access to your internal resources, or use an access broker component as part of towards your internal company resources. Of course, provide social engineering trainings. Use only verified video conference applications. So this is for you yourself as a person to not fall in a trap of a threat actor, to provide a fake job and actually get my device compromised. Especially for the ones which are in the cryptocurrency industries, because they have a lot of wallets and they have access to further companies which manage, cold wallets with crypto. Those are pretty juicy components that threat actors are looking for. And of course, remain guarded if asked to move conversation away from trusted platforms. So in a nutshell, because there are many other components you can pay attention for, but these are the easiest one. Accessible to everybody. That's all I had in a short overview on this new threat actor. North Korea is actively targeting through different means. I know there is another track later today for another phishing method, so I do encourage you to join that also. Thank you. If there are any questions, more than happy to take them.
Thank you so much for that wonderful, super detailed presentation. Love the examples. We can take up to 3 questions. Please keep your hands up. Let's go there in the back first. And then we'll take 2 more. Please keep your hand up so my colleague can see you. There in 3, 2, 1. He's there.
Hi. So the attackers might use also fake accounts or impersonate real companies that to be more credible. Is there any way for the real company to detect or to track down, or any method to prevent this, or how to react in such cases?
Usually, the best approach is to use proactive threat intelligence services, which are targeting alike names for the company, for the products, for the VIP persons, board members in the company, even office location names. So those are some examples of how you can easily identify, like the Helix one, Helix-US, helix.com, helixadvertisement.org. So when you do proactive threat intelligence research, if your company is named Helix, you can use that keyword. And then as new things occur, and especially new registered domains, it's pretty easy to actually spot those ones.
So it's also a collaboration with a professional platform that uses, that posts these ads to take them down as soon as they're detected?
It depends, but yes, you can do in-house. You can use threat intelligence dedicated platforms to do that for you and just consume the output. So yeah, there are different means to do it. Of course, depending on the services they provide, they can help you to take those domain down, report them and take them down, or you can do it by yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely, thank you. There was one question right around there. No? Was it gone? Who gets the next question? Okay,
No.
Please stand up.
Hey, so how likely are the malware to get detected by antivirus? And also, when the threat actor is searching a job, would they have to provide some criminal record or not? And how do they get around it?
So, first part of your question, yes, those components can be detected by an antivirus up to a point. I would rather recommend relying on an EDR capability, which not looks just on the signature, but also looks at behaviors. You execute the video conferencing app, by example, and then you have a component, a subcomponent, which is further being executed, that initiate a connection to download further the third part, the invisible third part. So the chain can be quicker be detected by an EDR capability rather than a standard AV component. And for the second part of your question, yes, background check capabilities always require from those persons to provide proof of school, criminal records, previous employees, data, numbers. They call them and they actually, okay, you had this employee in the past. What feedback can you give us about this employee? Issues, everything. So yeah, we do recommend background check services internally or with dedicated companies which are actually doing that. So that could help to spot persons which are pretending to be somebody and they're not.
Lovely, thank you. Last question.
Hey.
Hey.
What's the purpose of North Korean hackers to pose as an employer and compromise developers looking for a job? What are they after?
Getting access to the companies further, to companies' infrastructure. So for stealing information, if you're in the cryptocurrency market and you are developing cryptocurrency app, you by default will have access to internal backend system of the cryptocurrency application management. So as a freelancer, compromising you as a standalone employer, consultant, will further get access through your device to the company you are working for.